Tathagata on opening the sutra.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please sit comfortably and arrange yourselves in any way so that we can make eye contact and easily see each other. We're continuing with our inquiry and investigation into the Lankavatara Sutra. And yesterday we began looking at the Buddha's answer to a query about the mind system itself. If you recall, Mahamati said to the Blessed One, "Pray, tell us, Blessed One, what is meant by mind? What is meant by mind?" And there we saw that the Buddha pointed out that there was two important factors that he wanted to bring to our attention. And I encourage us all to relate to these teachings this way. These are experientially based observations that the Buddha wanted to bring to your attention. Not just for the sake of cool stuff to say over coffee, but for the sake of guiding our practice. And this means that these are not metaphysical speculations of some kind. Rather, these are coming out of the Buddha's direct experience of awakening. And therefore, it won't help you to believe in any of this. It actually won't help you as much as you'd like to even understand it, in quotes. But the purpose is, especially for those of us who are now in the deep end of the final day of Sesshin, okay, is to let the teachings that the Buddha wanted to bring to your attention simply allow them to wash through you. Allow these observations to simply enter your mind stream. You don't have to do anything with them. You don't have homework now. It's not like you have now another project. Every time I talk about the Lankavatara, now you have 3 months of work to do. Don't relate to it in this way. Rather, do what your practice is. Whatever the practice is that you've been given, rely on this. Whatever job you have to do in the session, this is your practice, right? We practice together in community. We make this experience possible by our co-creation of it together. And there are some things the Buddha wanted to bring to your attention. So please allow them to simply land and sort of saturate, if you will. You may find that certain seeds that are planted at various times, they might take decades to ripen. I mean, I can remember things that I've heard my teachers say that at the time angered me or confused me or just seemed like a complete blank. Like, why are they talking about this? And then, no kidding, sometime later, that day, that week, that month, that year, that decade, a sudden experience of depth can actually call to mind those moments. But for that to be true, you have to really listen. You have to approach the teachings correctly. So please, let the discriminating mind's defenses, shields down for just a moment. What more do I need to say? Why make waves? Well, because the waves are there, so let's do it. So, Buddha continues on. In the mind system, the Buddha says, there are 3 modes of activity that are distinguishable, experienceable. They're not intellectually crafted. First, the sense minds functioning while remaining in their original nature. And remember, the sense minds, and this is where this gets a little scrambly, so just sense minds are eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and brain. Those are organs of perception. Those are the sense minds. And each of those sense minds has its own consciousness and its own object of perception. Organ of perception, object of perception, and consciousness. That's a sense mind. So this mode of functioning of the sense minds is remaining in their original nature. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then, secondly, the sense minds as producing effects. Cause, effect. And finally, the sense minds as evolving, continuance. He goes on to address these 3 in more detail. Listen. By normal functioning, the sense minds grasp appropriate elements of their external world, by which sensation and perception arise at once and by degrees in every organ and every sense mind. In the pores of the skin, even in the very atoms that make up the body. The very atoms that make up your body have a kind of sense, a kind of self-sense in some way, or so the Buddha wishes to call to your attention. And by this sense, the whole field is apprehended like a mirror reflecting objects, and not realizing that the external world itself is only a manifestation of mind. So basically this first mode is, your ear hears sounds, your eye sees sights, and etc., as long as everything's healthy and functioning. Not realizing that it's all mind itself. Now the second mode, this is interesting, the second mode of activity that's discernible, that is experienceable, that is noticeable, is the activity produces effects by which these sensations react on the discriminating mind to produce attraction, aversion, grasping, deeds, and habits. So there's the natural functioning of simply encountering perceptions, direct, clear. And then there's this discriminating mind. If you remember the way that the Buddha sets it up in the sutra, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, brain, and then the self-sense mind, the small I am, the sense of you as a separate self, something more than the totality of the parts, separate and distinct from everything else. The troublemaker. The discriminating mind, it's called here. The manas, Vishnana. So keep track. Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and I'm going to say brain. Those are the sense minds. And then discriminating mind kind of sees itself as the governor, the decider. So this first mode of activity of the sense minds is simply encountering stimuli directly. The second mode is producing effect on discriminating mind. Buddha says this produces attraction, aversion, grasping, clinging, deeds, actions in response, and habit. The third mode of activity has to do with growth, development, and passing of the mind system. This is karmic habit energy. These perceptions that in some way affect the discriminating mind, which makes an attraction, which then causes an action, creates a very, very strong karmic tether. This is what's meant by the evolution and the continuance, the sense of selfness that persists through time. I woke up this morning and I can still play guitar. Why? Why is it so? The third mode of activity has to do with the growth, development, and passing of the mind system. That is, the mind system is in subjection to its own habit energy accumulated from beginningless time. Now this phrase, since beginningless time, you run into this in Dharma teachings, and don't let that throw you off your cushion. Remember, dear one, the Buddha is talking from the perspective of experiential knowing. You don't know, you don't experience when time began for you, because there was nothing before that experience began. You weren't there before the gun went off and everybody starts running. There was nothing before. That's why we say beginningless. Because to you, time has had no beginning. In this mind system, I should say. The mind system itself recognizes nothing before it. Only what's in its consciousness up to now, as the Gateless Gate points out. As for instance, the I-ness in the eye that predisposes it to grasp and become attached to multiple forms and appearances. In this way, the activities of the evolving mind system, by reason of this habit energy, stirs up waves of objectivity on the face of universal mind. Oh God, another mind? What's going on here? I just asked about mind. What is all this mind, that mind, the other mind? Well, it's pretty clear, actually. The sense minds, eye, nose, tongue, body, brain. Brain perceives thoughts, feelings. Manos mind, discriminating mind. Oh, you're a person of high taste and good character. Good job. There's your discriminating mind. It's that unawakened sense of self. What's universal mind? Don't get thrown off the Dharma horse here. It's suchness, thusness. clear light, non-conceptual, luminous, self-aware, blissful, empty, Buddha nature, wisdom, tathagata garbha, suchness, thusness mind. There. Cram them all in there. Here called universal mind. And mind you, when Buddha in this sutra is talking about true nature, Buddha will use very different words depending on the way that the practitioner is stuck. So if you're stuck on your true self, he'll say things like, the sutra will say things like emptiness, no self, unborn. But if you're stuck on that, if you're stuck on some idea of emptiness, then the sutra says true nature, true self. If you're stuck on both of them, oh, I know this, it's both. I got it. Or no, it's neither of those, they're just ideas. Again, you'll get different words. And remember, the Buddha is always in the role of a physician. And words are just medicine or poison. So when this sutra is working well for us, it's providing the words we need to, it's using illness to heal illness. It's nothing more than that. But it's nothing less. That's why the words are important, because they do heal. They do help. In this case, the querent asked, what is mind? Now let's go back. The habit energy, right? You have the mode of existence or the mode of functioning where perception occurs, form, appearance. Then discrimination mind interacts with this, and there's name, and then there's action, body, speech, mind, thoughts. Karma is generated. Habit energy begins to accrue. Thus, the continuance of the mind system. And what does all this do? Its habit energy stirs up waves of objectivity on the face of universal mind, of true nature. Waves of objectivity. Which in turn conditions the activities and involvement of the mind system itself. It was very interesting if you kind of go in there, because it's saying that then the universal mind ends up conditioning or interacting with all these other aspects of mind. Appearances, perception, attraction, grasping, actions, habits, reactions. They all condition one another incessantly. Pretty strong word. But remember, Buddha here has called our attention even to the atoms of your own body. You may be doing everything possible to sit in complete stillness, and yet in truth, your body is a riot of activity. Blood is pumping, neurons are firing, cells are dying, being sloughed off. The very atoms of your own body aren't consistent. They're changing all the time. Where's the stillness? There is a stillness. What is it? The discriminating mind, the sense of small self. I like this, I don't like that. This is me, that mind. Together, and with the universal mind are thus bound together. Thus, by reason of discrimination of that which by nature is illusory, like unreal and false and imagined, erroneous reasoning takes place, action follows, and its habit energy accumulates. thereby defiling the pure face of universal mind. It's not that complicated, is it? Remember, the Buddha is trying to bring to our attention the hinges upon which our suffering depend. If you can unbolt those hinges, something very different comes. Why is it that we have this small sense of self and it causes problems when it's not properly realized? How is it that this occurs? I didn't sign on for this. I signed no waiver. The mind system itself does this. In that sense, there's absolutely nothing personal about it. You take great pride in your personality, do you? And your skills and your accomplishments? Or do you constantly identify with being the fool, the one who never does right, messes everything up reliably, is a great hindrance to everyone and yourself? Don't be fooled. As a result of this habit energy continuing through the mind system, then it comes into functioning and the physical body has its genesis. Kind of interesting. The physical body thereby has its genesis in this. You know, we tend to think of it purely biologically. Sperm, egg, conception, zygote, moving through the stages, very clinical. Of course, that's all true from a perspective, but why? Well, the Buddha called this to our attention. But the discriminating mind, remember that's the sense of self, the small egoic mind, you could say, quite well. The ego mind has no thought that by its discriminations and its attachments, that it is conditioning the whole body. That discriminating mind, since beginningless time, has been conditioning your whole body, your true body. That's why it all feels so unquestioningly congruent, and why it feels like there's no way out. It all seems so solid, doesn't it? You know, when you're really in the grip, it feels like it's always going to be that way, doesn't it? And yet it's not. By its discriminations and attachments, it is conditioning the whole body. And so the sense minds and the discriminating mind go on mutually related and mutually conditioned in a most intimate manner, building up a world of representations out of the activities of its own imagination. That, dear one, is the tank that you swim in. The sense minds, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, brain, and the discriminating mind, your ego, go on mutually related and mutually conditioned. They condition each other. There's no gap, and yet they mutually condition in a most intimate manner. And building up a world, your world, the world you take to be real, factual, verifiable, empirically true. building up a world of representations out of the activities of its own imagination. I mean, have you had the experience yet of sitting there and you begin the period in a zendo, but somewhere in the middle of the period, you're off on a big trip? Oh my God, right? I mean, the adventures we'll have, the journeys we take, the memory lane, the terrors of the future imagined, the triumphs unnoticed by others, the embarrassing moments that won't let us go. The whole light show, man, the whole thing. That thing you could have said, oh, that's what I should have said. That chord you could have played but didn't, or the chord I did play and it was great. You understand? Like if you can suddenly awaken, you'll go, what is happening right now? What's happening? What's happening? I sat in this posture, for God's sake. The bell rang. I'm going to do my practice, and zip, off I go to Storyville. What actually is happening there? Not just, you bring your mind back and let go. What's actually happening? If you really stare it right in the face and you really confront it and you examine in intimate and granular detail the workings of your own experience, what do you see? This requires a kind of ferocity that is almost unimaginable, but that you have within you. This will require everything of you, because you really have to take everything and be willing to look at it and look beyond it. And a lot of people come to training because they're in a lot of hurt. And I bow to it, and we can help. There's things you can do. But that's, in a way, kind of easy because, for most of us, hurting just kind of, hurts. We'd like it to stop. Then the hurt stops a little bit, and you start to feel a little ease, perhaps, and now you cling to that. That's a much harder trap to let go of because it's pleasant. But do not be satisfied by simply sitting there having a nice experience. I'm glad you're having a nice experience. I prefer nice experiences myself to painful ones. But don't be satisfied there. Stay awake. Watch what's happening. This conditions in a most intimate manner and building up of a world of representations out of the activities of the mind system's own imagination. As a mirror reflects forms, the perceiving senses perceive appearances, which the discriminating mind gathers together and proceeds to discriminate. It's the Dewey Decimal System. Filing cabinets. The socks go here, the undies go there, the jeans go here. The triumphs and the follies, everything gets filed. It gets gathered together and proceeds to discriminate, to name, and to become attached to this name. Between these two functions, there is no gap. Nevertheless, they are mutually conditioning, as I said earlier. The perceiving senses grasp that for which they have an affinity. And there is a transformation that takes place in their structure by reason of which the mind proceeds to combine, discriminate, apprise, and then act. Then follows habit energy and the establishing of mind, the mind, and its continuance. And those acts body, speech, and mind. We hear those three all the time: body, speech, and mind. Karma, born of body, speech, and mind. Those are the activities that feed into the storehouse consciousness. Now, what's funny about all this is that when you see through into your own self, when you realize yourself as the universe, which you can do, it's not a myth, by the way, what you realize is the whole thing is actually quite perfect, just as it is. Then there's that choice to return and engage in the triple world that we talked about yesterday. So it's this inherent perfection. It's very easy. I have great sympathy for the traditions that say, well, how do we explain what's happening? Well, we're all obviously bad dogs. Bad dog, bad dog, bad dog, bad dog, bad dog. I must be a bad dog because everything feels bad. And there's some entity out there somewhere that's shaking the finger at us that we have to, and do whatever they say, because after all, you're a bad dog. But you're not. You are perfect. You are complete. You lack nothing. That inherent perfection, realization of that inherent perfection and actualization of it, actually living out of it. This is not for other people who ate purely organic food and lived in the fresh air of the Himalayas, and the stars were different then and the alignments were possible. Even in the Buddhist tradition, there are many, many branches that say, well, this awakening stuff, that was for back in the day. Now we're in a degenerate age and it's not possible. But hearken, simply have faith and make your prayers, and you'll be reborn in a place where it's possible through the grace of a Savior. Well, not here. You're on your own. But you're on your own together with the entire lineage and the ancestors and the cosmos itself. Isn't it amazing? At once, I alone and all beings throughout space and time have realized the great way. Yesterday, I found a supporting quote from the fifth ancestor. The fifth ancestor is the one that transmitted to the sixth, because math. And this is the one that the illiterate peasant boy came and heard a line of the sutra, came to awakening and said, where did this teaching come from? And he was directed north to the land of literacy and civilization. He came from the backward country with his dungaree overalls and straw hat, and he made his way up to the big cities of the north where there's intellection and language and writing, culture, made his way to the great teacher, then recognized something very real in this young boy, this illiterate, uneducated, who had seen into their nature to some degree. That teacher is the one who said the dark clouds of the 5 clusters, if you remember, that cloud the sun so it cannot shine. Form, sensation, perception, consciousness, right? There's another one in there. Well, what did the sixth ancestor have to say? Following with our recent eclipse adventure, the sixth ancestor, Huineng, in the Platform Sutra, another venerable text, said, the sun and the moon are always shining. It's only due to cloud cover that there is light above but darkness below, and we can't see the sun or the moon or the stars. Then suddenly the wind of wisdom comes along and blows the clouds and drives the fog away. In a panorama of 10,000 stars in the night appears all at once. Our nature is pure, like the open sky above. Our nature is pure, like the open sky above. And our wisdom is like the sun and the moon. Our wisdom is always shining. But if we externally become attached to objects, the clouds of delusion cover our nature and we can't see it. If the functioning of your mind system is unknown to you, and you stay in the realm of form, appearance, and name, and discrimination, and just loop that over and over, bouncing from pleasure to pain, from winning to losing, from gain to loss, from youth to age. That's like the Titanic steaming full ahead into a sea filled with icebergs. You know how that's going to end. But there's another choice. It's to settle down. It's to pay intimate attention. Really trust yourself and really pay attention fearlessly. And bring what you're experiencing into that Doksan room and show me. Show me. Show your mind. Show your practice. Embody it, express it. And then we dance. This is the way it's been. I have unspeakable gratitude for my teachers and their teachers and the teachers before them. But mostly, dear ones, I have unspeakable gratitude for you. Because those cats all had their turn to play. Now it's our turn. And that generation coming next and next, if we don't realize this, it's going to be harder for them too. So for yourself, for each other, for all beings throughout space and time, may you realize your true self. For all beings, may it be so.
To